Love does come to know no age. Love can come to the young or the old. Like the movie we're going to talk about this time, which is about a woman in her 30s and a 16-year-old boy who has a short relationship, having met during a ferry ride across the English Channel. When the ferry takes us from Le Havre to Portsmouth, the characters meet, shop, drink, dance, have sex, and finally part ways at their destination. Shallowly, this isn't a movie. It has marginal production value, two-person cast, and little story. However, as a relationship film, the film has subtle nuances with ups and downs of conversation, body language, visible emotions, and highly natural human interaction. Not for everyone. So, are you guys wondering how the story goes? Well, let's get into the video. The movie opens with a young man named Thomas, who is seen hurrying to catch the departure of the ship, because he himself is going to England to continue his education at the university. Fortunately, even though he was late, he was still allowed to board the ship. After boarding the ship, Thomas was surprised because the ship he was on turned out to be so luxurious. There was even a shopping center, cafe, and also a movie theater on board. But unfortunately, because he was an economy class passenger, he couldn't enjoy all these facilities. And he didn't even get a room, so he was forced to rest in the movie theater. After leaving his luggage, Thomas went to the cafeteria on the ship to buy food, where he met a woman who was complaining about the food provided in the cafeteria, and she even demanded that her food be replaced immediately. Thomas, who was beside her, offered to accept the woman's food instead of being thrown away. After taking his food and paying, Thomas immediately looked for a seat, where he saw the woman from earlier already sitting with her new food. She even called Thomas to sit with her. They then got acquainted, and this woman's name was Alice. Alice kept watching Thomas and felt anxious when she saw Thomas eating so voraciously. From this, Alice knew how heavy Thomas was. After finishing eating, Thomas, with a little confidence, began to chat casually with Alice, while smoking a cigarette to keep his composure. He then thanked Alice for inviting him to sit down to eat with her. Then Alice asked where Thomas was going after arriving in the UK. Thomas then replied that he would continue his education at one of the universities, because he had received a scholarship and he also wanted to seek new experiences by getting out of the city where he lived. Here Thomas continued to tell her about his personal life, family, and love affairs. In contrast, Alice only acted passively and preferred to be a listener rather than reveal her personal life. The longer they talked, the more they felt close and familiar, not even realizing that the cafeteria visitors were just the two of them. After that, Alice invited Thomas to accompany her shopping, where she bought food and soft drinks to take home, and this is where their relationship began to get closer. After returning, Alice put all her things in the room, then rushed to the cafe to hang out there, and she even invited Thomas. Alice ordered some liquor for her, while Thomas only had a regular soda, given that he was 16 years old and not yet allowed to drink alcohol. This is where their conversation began to get more intense, where Alice was not ashamed to talk about her household problems, where it turned out that Alice already had a husband and children. However, lately her relationship with her husband was not good, because Alice revealed that she was in a long-distance relationship. Alice, because of work demands, she has to go to France while her husband lives in England, so that makes her feel bored and restless because she is in a long-distance relationship even though she has a family. She also revealed that she had lost her feelings for her husband, but it was because of the presence of her child that she was still able to live a long-distance relationship, although at times she also felt that it was useless, because it could not change the situation about their very far distance. Hearing Alice's confessions, Thomas was just silent while looking and talking to himself that Alice had her own charm. And from here Thomas started to be attracted to Alice and felt there was a chance to get close to her. Thomas was made even more excited when he saw Alice untie her hair, making him want to immediately have a woman who was older than him. During the meeting, Thomas tried to act closer to Alice by holding her hand and trying to seduce her, and in the end Thomas ventured to ask her to dance. But the seduction and invitation of Thomas were rejected raw by Alice, thus making Thomas annoyed and left her. This also made Alice feel guilty. When Alice tried to look for him, she couldn't find Thomas anywhere, so she gave up and immediately returned to her room. Then, while in the room and looking out of the porthole, Alice saw Thomas, who was brooding on the side of the ship. Without much thought, Alice immediately went down to Mgampiri Thomas, and their Thomas immediately apologized for his impolite actions. But it turned out that Alice didn't mind it. Alice just thought that Thomas was too impetuous and didn't want to follow the flow of her comfort level. And that's when Alice realized that Thomas was just a very innocent young man, so she considered the previous thing as a teenager's normalcy. Finally, that night became a warm night for Thomas, because Alice already knew what Thomas wanted. After that, Alice hurried to invite Thomas to her room, because Alice honestly also wanted inner satisfaction after a long time of long-distance relationship with her husband. After some short time of approach, finally there was a warm and refreshing bed relationship on that cold night. After reaching the peak of pleasure and sharing warmth, they then sleep together and embrace each other. The next day, when the sun rises, those who are still filled with lust continue to share the pleasure. And after that, they showered together. Then the next morning, they immediately left the room and brought their luggage, because the ship they were on would dock in about 40 minutes. And at this moment, they immortalized their togetherness by taking intimate photos. Then after that, they had breakfast together, and Alice looked at Thomas with a serial beaming face, because she had gotten the inner satisfaction she had always wanted. Then not long after, the ship docked and they immediately got off the ship, queuing with other passengers. Thomas asked Alice to wait for him for a while, because he just remembered that he had left his luggage at the cinema. But unfortunately, when Thomas returned, he found Alice had already left. Not only that, he also had to miss the passenger bus that was going to take him out of the port. Knowing this, he immediately went to the office at the port, but not to look for a ride, but still to look for Alice. However, on the other hand, it turned out that Alice had been picked up by her husband and greeted by her child. Not long after, Thomas found Alice in the car park and immediately approached her. But Alice's reaction was very indifferent and as if she didn't recognize Thomas, even ignoring Thomas. Thomas can only be silent and look at Alice with a feeling of loss. Thomas only feels if he is used as an outlet, considering that Alice already has a family. The movie ends with Thomas leaving the parking lot with a sad feeling of having lost the woman who has given warmth overnight, and the movie ends. So, what do you think of this movie? Maybe you can write it in the comments section. The conclusion of this movie is that it requires its viewers to make a heavier adjustment in entering a made-up world. And very few are able to find a successful ending. In our opinion, Brief Crossing depends only on the expressions of a few people. Not even a penny was spent on perfecting anything that wasn't essential to help the movie reach the end. Of course, not everyone can watch it, but those who like it once won't forget it for long. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.